Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/ProRevenge. Today, we have a dose of Karen-related stories. Get prepared. And subscribe to our channel if you're new here. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. To the story. HOA member gets revenge on crappy lady. Okay, so there's a lady in my neighborhood's HOA, Homeowners Association, who gets extremely PO'd when people feed the ducks at our neighborhood pond because the ducks crap where they aren't supposed to, or something like that. So an old lady that's like 60 goes down to the pond and is feeding the ducks some grapes, and the lady, who I'll call Karen, sees her and walks down and starts screaming and cussing out this old lady for feeding the ducks. At the next HOA meeting, the old lady's daughter, who I'll call Diane, goes and starts cussing out Karen for screaming at her 60-year-old mom. The meeting was taking place at a pizza parlor, by the way. Diane is kicked off the HOA, and Karen gets off scot-free. Well, a man who we'll call Dave goes and asks what that was about, and Diane tells him the whole story. And Dave is not happy. So he goes and buys about 60 pounds worth of bird feed, finds out where Karen's house is at, and makes a trail of bird feed leading from the pond to Karen's house. Once the trail gets to Karen's house, he covers her entire yard with bird feed. Karen lives about 2 houses down from me, so I could hear the screams when she woke up to see about every duck in our neighborhood, about 50 ducks, converging on her lawn. Her lawn is trashed with the ducks' crap, and it smells. Long story short, Karen was kicked off the HOA, and Diane was allowed back in, and got some sweet revenge. And our second story. Be a jerk to me, and I'll make sure you lose millions of dollars, your home, car, and your reputation. So this happened about 10 years ago. I used to work for a technology company in a government incubator. It was a building that helped startup companies by offering very cheap rent. One of the companies was an animation company. The owner was a complete D-bag. Whenever you would run into him, he would always be a complete jerk. Anyone that knew him hated him. Now, it was only a small company with 4 to 5 staff members for the first couple of months. Honestly, I don't even know how he survived that long. The animators were terrible. And by terrible, I mean, what the F did I just watch terrible? But this guy was an amazing salesman. He managed to sell himself and his company to a hip-hop group in California. Being from a fairly small city in Canada, Halifax, this was a big deal, and made the business sections in the newspapers, and he even won an award for top 50 CEOs in the region. The new contract landed him millions of dollars, with around $1.6 million up front. But he didn't have enough staff to take on this new animated miniseries. He immediately hired approximately 20 additional animators, all naive students right out of college. After a couple of weeks, his new staff still wasn't being paid. I knew a couple of people that worked there, including one of the original 5, who was receiving a small paycheck, and asked her what was the deal. She told me that he said he didn't have any money and that the money was coming soon. He somehow convinced most of the animators to continue working for free. He insisted that if they stuck around, they would all become rich, and it would make all their personal portfolios look amazing. Considering most of these kids had no experience, they didn't quit. Once I found out about his claim of having no money, I contacted a local magazine. It's a political magazine that likes to report on businesses and politicians that are corrupt. They emailed me back, and I told them everything I knew about this animation company and what the owner was doing. Well, the magazine did some digging and published an article about the owner. After their investigation, they had learned that the CEO had in fact received $1.6 million up front for the project, but instead of investing it into the company, he spent it all on himself, including a new home valued at over $500,000, new cars, etc. You can only imagine what happened next. Pretty much every employee quit the day after the article ran. The group from California sued him shortly afterwards because they invested that money and got nothing back. The CEO was taken to court. He was sued by 7 of his previous employees, $31,000 plus awarded to each employee. He lost his home, car, and was now seen as a joke in the industry. After all this, he moved to a different province, But things got worse. He had to file bankruptcy, claiming $248,000 in liabilities. One of my ex-employees recently got a job at the same magazine. I asked him if he could look through their archives to see if the information I had leaked to them is what caused their investigations. Sure enough, it all started because of my email correspondence with their editor. And our next story. Read your damn emails, Karen! I used to work in an office. What kind of work isn't particularly important to the story, so just picture a basic office job. Every January, HR would send an email to all employees with the employee handbook. This included job descriptions, office policies, etc. Every year since the PDF handbook had been established, it would be named with the year following it to establish it was different than the original and all other years. Any changes would have been updated next to the section in the table of contents so you could see what had changed from the previous year and familiarize yourself with anything new. Now with that background, we'll introduce Karen. Karen had been with the company a pretty long time, about 10 years I believe. She was fine at her job, just fine. She would get things done, but not without making everyone else miserable in the process. She would ask questions that had already been answered and basically just waste everyone's time for fun. She was just plain nasty to people and tried as hard as she could to make everyone stay far away from her. The worst thing about her was she always seemed to be looking for a fight or looking for a reason to complain. She had threatened lawsuits a few times over any small thing, but would always just get over it and drop it because she knew no laws had been broken and it would never go anywhere. She'd comment on how she should basically sue every business she ever went to because she could live off the settlement and retire early, over the smallest issues you can imagine. She did her job and we never had a valid reason to fire her, especially knowing how lawsuit happy she was. So she stayed. Karen's job description, as per the handbook, called for a bachelor's degree. Karen did not have a bachelor's degree but had been hired prior to that being a requirement, so she was grandfathered in. One day, a position above hers became open. A guy who we'll call Terry had recently completed his master's degree after taking night classes for a few years, and since an internal promotion is typically better than an outside hire, he was chosen for the promotion. Terry had been at the company about 4.5 years and was well-liked and great at his job. The new job required a master's degree in its job descriptions, and him being a recent grad, it was a perfect fit, and everyone was happy for him. Everyone but Karen. Since she was constantly looking for something to sue about, she took it as a direct insult that she'd not been considered for this promotion that she was not at all qualified for. She immediately cried discrimination and told our boss her lawyer would be in touch. We were all perplexed, since it was very clear that this position required a master's degree, and given that she didn't even have a bachelor's degree, there's no way she could have been hired for the role. What we soon realized was that Karen had saved the original company handbook named Company Handbook and had not bothered to open or save any new editions that were sent in the following 8 years. She just assumed no changes had been made and that it was just sent every year to ensure all employees had it. If she had bothered to open the file, she would have seen the sections that say updated in the table of contents. Since Karen cried lawsuit a lot, no one expected much of this since it was a ridiculous claim. But sure enough, Karen gives her resignation letter via email, and it is scathing about how she can't bear to work in such a discriminatory environment that would only promote men. When any higher-ups try to speak to her about this and clear up the confusion, she basically tells them to F off and to read the damn email. I don't know any more of an explanation. She basically goes full Karen. Not long after, a letter comes in from her lawyer asking for a settlement to avoid a discrimination case. What Karen hadn't realized was that our boss's sister-in-law owned a law firm. She didn't really take on clients herself anymore and mostly just managed the other lawyers of her firm. She was basically semi-retired. What this meant was she had plenty of time to review any letters from Karen's lawyer and advise us. Since Karen didn't bother to read any of the updated handbooks, she was unaware that this position had required a master's degree for many years now. I believe about 6 years. She supplied her lawyer with the original company handbook from 9 years ago, and he used that as a reference in his settlement demand. This was when we realized she hadn't read any new handbooks in years. Since Karen rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, boss's sister-in-law decided to personally take on the case. Every letter Karen's lawyer sent, she sent one back 3 times the length. Some of it wouldn't even really say anything, just wordiness, but it would certainly take Karen's lawyer a while to read it, and he did not come cheap. After several of these letters, they realize no settlement is going to happen. They want to take it to court. It's a pretty cut and dry case. Boss's sister-in-law shows evidence that Karen has received all updates via email. After the change was made and the handbook sent out, HR even sent an email to Karen specifically, letting her know that she was grandfathered in and doesn't need to worry, to which Karen replied, "Okay, thank you," confirming receipt of it. The best part was when the boss's sister-in-law said that they couldn't break company rules to give Karen a job she was totally unqualified for, while neglecting another employee who went above and beyond to get his master's degree to advance, as that would be unfair to all other employees. Karen now had a huge, seriously, huge bill from her lawyer for all of these letters and filing the case, etc., no job, no one she could list as a positive recommendation, and no degree. In the time she'd been at the company, it had become industry standard to require a bachelor's degree, so she was effectively shut out of her career. It would also be hard to explain how you worked somewhere for a decade and don't have a letter of recommendation from anyone there. If she had only read her damn emails. And our last story, telemarketers' delight. For context, I live in Norway, where telemarketers really can't call if you're on a do not call list. But because my company pays my bill, there seems to be a loophole there. I've been getting a couple of calls every week from 1881, Norwegian Yellow Pages, asking for the CEO. I've been politely telling them that his number is available on our website and basically to feth off. Of course I can forward you to the CEO, hang on, and forwarding them to their own CEO. No one has bothered to ask for my CEO by name or company, so I suppose that any CEO will do. The last 2 weeks have been very peaceful. Maybe they didn't like explaining to their own boss why they called him. Hey guys, thank you for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one.